Hi there everyone, welcome to my channel, and well, I'm back with Cyberpunk 2077 once again. I couldn't resist. I was very curious about how it would perform at full power, so I took my side panel off because it's a very hot day. So I've been running my GPU with power threshold, but as I wanted to see the actual figures I could get, I had to take it off, and now, well, we're gonna get reasonable temperatures hopefully, running at full power. Initially we're going to be running frame gen off, obviously, to see, should have a baseline. Obviously, we're running DLSS on balance because path tracing without super resolution is just not going to work. It's obviously not going to run. I mean, I guess we could try, right? Let's run native first and not have any sort of frame generation. This is going to be terrible. Okay. So, oh god, it crashed. That's how bad it is. No, it's actually running, but it's very terrible right now. We're getting 3 FPS. That's path tracing. That's the experience right there. As expected, it does not run. That's supposed to be native, Quad HD. Running 100% of the 8 FPS. That's unplayable. That's unplayable. Okay. That was very sad. But now we could go and enable frame gen for a change. So we're not upscaling for the time being. We're just going to be running, you know, everything on ultra, path tracing, and all that jazz, but no scaling whatsoever. Let's apply and see what it does. Okay, can we have a playable frame then? No. 24. That's absolutely terrible. Lots of artifacts. It's just not working, as you can see. Very disappointing, but I mean, it would be wishful thinking, you know, to think my 3080 could run path tracing without help. Even more so given it's on Ultra and Quad HD and, you know. Let's try balance. Super res, let's do quality first. No, yeah, let's do quality. Let's see how it fares. Okay, this is quality. We're getting 60. Oh my god. We're getting bang on 60 on quality. I'm not gonna lie, this is actually playable. This is actually playable. Let me unplug my controller because it's acting up. It's being weird. No, I don't care about that. That was intentional. For some reason, my character, my controller doesn't have drift, by the way, but for some reason, whenever I have it on Cyberpunky, it makes that happen. It's very confusing. But as you can see here, 60 FPS, 59, 60, drawing a lot of power as usual, and it's looking amazing. Wow, path tracing. Quite convenient that's a wet day, so we have a lot of reflective surfaces to look at, and it looks amazing, obviously. I would say this is playable, you know, like, honestly, playable. Quite, decent, but the thing is, wow, we can get better than that, you know, with balanced, without much of a visual penalty, you know. But this is pretty impressive. I mean, quality, that means it's rendering 1080p. So 1080p frame generation, we get near 60 FPS. Okay, it's dipping. It's dipping a little bit under that figure that we really wanted, but it's still pretty good nonetheless. Like, I'm very happy with that because you gotta consider that path tracing is very intensive on the machine. So the mere fact we are having playable frames, even though it's, you know, using frame generation and so on, is already pretty impressive. But yeah, this is not something I would consider. Like, if I were to play at this resolution, I mean, to play at this setting, I probably wouldn't, because I prefer 60. For first-person shooters, anything below 60 is just a bit sad. Even though I have a G-Sync panel, so the frame drops are soften it a little bit. But even so, it's still not something I would consider fun to play at. 56, 57, 56, 57, around the ballpark. It's not terrible, but it's also not the most impressive thing in the universe, honestly. But the visuals, baby, wow. I'm very impressed with the visuals, if only the performance matched. So when we stop walking, we get 60, but whenever we move, the frames dip a little bit. Okay, that's a good look at super res on quality and frame gen on. Let's try, I mean, not super res, just DLSS itself. So let's try balanced. Now we're running the balanced preset, which renders at 900p, I think, unless I'm mistaken. So 900p upscaled with the power and magic of AI. How does that look? Okay. So we're getting around 10 more FPS than we would be getting with it on quality, and visually I cannot really tell much of a difference. I mean, it's obviously a bit blurrier, but other than that, wow, this is very playable. Moving around, I don't really feel like, wow. Okay, look at the reflections though, that's impressive. That's amazing. Okay, let's try and get some action going on. There's a guy there, there's two of them actually. Ooh. Oh yeah. Also, we gotta consider that I'm running RTX voice, so that does detract it a little bit from the performance as well. We gotta consider that for the figures. So the figures might be a little different. The experience may vary for you. Oh, oops. Almost died. There we go. Do we have tier 4 item components? What else do we have here? Hi. Don't mind me, I'm just gathering my loot that I deserve, 100%. Tier 3 item components. What do we have here? More items. Great. Okay. Wow. The reflection is so good, mate. Holy cow. Alright. 50, it's dipping. It's still dipping below 60 at times. But most of the time you're getting like 70, which is great, and it feels like walking around here doesn't feel laggy at all. Like, honest to God, this is playable as hell. And visually, wow, chef's kiss. I mean, with a minor overclock on a GPU, I bet you could easily get above 60 on DLSS quality, which is insane. I mean, just look at this thing. It's so sharp. It's so pretty. This is actual art right there. We're getting 68 FPS with path tracing. That's something I want you guys to remember. This is path traced. We're running path tracing on Ultra. Everything, actually, the whole game is running on Ultra, along with path tracing. So if you make a few compromises on the graphic settings, like if you follow a preset, like by that one by Hardware Unboxed, you could probably get even better performance. I'm running just Ultra everything, because I wanted to see how much frame generation could actually change the experience. So I went full nonsense with the settings, just Ultra settings, everything, which is not ideal. Ideally, you should tweak your settings to get best performance, performance time visuals. You know, a good compromise. There's that great balance between both. But this is just all Ultra, and honestly, I could play this for days. Okay, let's get a car. That should work. The Porsche. Yeah, that's good enough. Where's it? Oh, it's coming. Here we go. Here's my Porsche. Let's drive around, see how the performance fares with driving. Things are about to get a little bit sad, I suppose. I have not tested yet with vehicles, honestly, but I assume it's gonna dip. Let's get in. Oh, baby, look at that. Path tracing, baby. That looks fantastic. Right, let's give it a spin. shall we? 66 FPS so far, which is not bad. Oh my god. Wow. Sounds great as well. So we're getting a 65. My driving is going to be terrible, by the way. I'm not used to driving with the keyboard. I always play with my controller, but it's acting up with Cyberpunk. Oh, stutters. Stutters. Yeah. A great thing I noticed about FrameGen is that it helps a lot with CPU limited scenarios in general. Like, there are times when your CPU is just not being able to deliver 60 FPS. It's not even your GPU's fault. Like, you're being bottlenecked by the CPU, like I am currently. My CPU is a potato. So there are times when I get heavily bottlenecked. And then frame generation comes into play and allows the frame rate to stay somewhat solid. Even though your CPU is struggling a lot, you're still getting somewhat playable numbers, which is great. So you don't have to rely a lot on the CPU anymore. So FrameGen is quite a lifesaver for people that didn't upgrade the CPU yet. Because my line of thought was like, okay, my GPU is a little bit slow. I had a 27. That was my train of thought. I was like, maybe I could get more graphical juice first, and then I upgrade the CPU eventually. But I mean, considering I only play Microsoft Flight Sim and I'm happy with 30 FPS, I really don't feel an urge to upgrade just yet. Even more so because there's FrameGen for Microsoft Flight Sim now, so if things get bad, I could just enable frame generation. Also, on the frame generation note, as you can see, we're getting a little bit of ghosting. You can see a bit of the back of the car just kind of ghosting. That's one of the side effects of frame generation. One of the downsides of having frame generation on. Well, I mean, it's a minor thing. You can just hardly notice it. You gotta, like, really pay attention, because generally when you're driving, you're not looking at the back of your car, you're looking ahead at the scenery. So I don't see it as a big deal, honestly. I mean, especially because I'm getting twice the performance. So it's a very simple trade-off. You get a little bit of ghosting, but in exchange you get twice the performance. What would you rather have? You know, half the performance but no ghosting, or a little bit of ghosting and twice the performance? I mean, the answer is pretty clear. I mean, for myself at least. I would very much rather have the ghosting. Because ghosting, I mean, it's not the end of the universe, is it? It's just a little bit of ghosting. It doesn't kill you at all. And you can just hardly notice it. You gotta be really looking for it, honestly, if you want to really notice that ghosting. So I just realized I've been seeing a lot, honestly. It's up recent. That's bad. Gotta get rid of that a bit. Anyway. This is great. Like I've said it before. I mean, I've written it before because I didn't add comments on my last Cyberpunk video. There was no voice commentary. But as I've written, it's quite a nice experience. And I was running at 65% power threshold, so I was getting same settings here, but I was getting like 60 FPS. Now I'm getting a little bit more than that. It doesn't scale all that impressively, honestly. At 65% of it's getting 60, 65, 78. Here I'm getting 60 still. I think what might have caused it is because I've been jumping through the settings, so it does affect the performance a little bit. That's something I realized. I mean, I've been playing around with this for a while. So I realized if you mess with the settings, for some reason the frame generation kind of doesn't work as it should. It just kind of, look, on that note, it has kind of just stopped working. Oh no, it's not. Never mind. We're getting 60 still. It's just the CPU being very, very, very potato-y, which does not help. But yeah, it's something I noticed. Like, if you're gonna run this mod, at the very least on Cyberpunk, from what I've seen, do not mess with the settings. You know, go with one setting, enable frame generation, don't touch it ever again. Just leave it be. Because if you do, it's still gonna generate frames, but it doesn't generate frames as well as it could Like it, something, I'm not sure what exactly happens, but for some reason it just doesn't get as efficient as it could have been. Because like when I loaded in, I was getting 80 FPS, I was averaging 80, now I'm averaging slow 60s. Okay, now I'm getting 74, but I was averaging, I mean, while recording all that, at first it was 80s, then it dipped, then I messed with the settings. You know, different DLSS settings and so on, and it has impacted my performance, my overall performance. But rule of thumb, just don't touch it. You know, don't touch it ever again. Set it up and forget it. Set and forget, and then just play, because that's what this mod is for. At the end of the day, you're supposed to play and enjoy the game, and holy cow, is it enjoyable! I mean, this is great. It's really great. I mean, I never thought I could run this game this well with path tracing. Even though the frames are mostly fake, the fluidity is not. That's the point. That's what that's what frame generation is all about. It's not about the frames themselves. It's the fluidity, because it transforms your game into an unplayable mess. I mean, from an unplayable mess to something that it can actually play and enjoy. Because if I had this off, I would be getting 8 FPS, as you've seen. Like without DLSS, without the frame generation, I was getting 8, 7 FPS. Now I'm getting what? Okay, 56, 62, but still, it's way better than it would ever be without frame generation. This is a game changer. This is a game changer for RTX 2000 and 3000 onwards. There is no other way to look at it other than something that is a game changer and truly, truly transforms the experience of playing Cyberpunk, or playing any game that's compatible with frame generation and therefore compatible with this mod. This is... in my opinion, it's one of the greatest things to ever happen to us gamers. Frame generation overall. The way Nvidia has done it, by locking it to the 4000 cards, was kind of lame, but thankfully AMD came to the rescue, it gave it to us, and the community has embraced it as well, and allowed us to experience that in a bunch of games, other than the official ones as well. So we all get this wonderful, wonderful experience of, you know, being able to generate frames without having to buy a 4000 card, which is great and it's very on. So yeah, that's just my 5 cents about the whole thing. There's no reason to not enable it, in my opinion, because it will make your experience way better than it could possibly be. I mean, obviously it's not native, it's not... Oh, something that I forgot to mention also. If you disable ray tracing and keep the settings on ultra, but with ray tracing off, you can max out the refresh rate on a 165Hz Quad HD panel. That's insane. But yeah, it is true. I was testing, and I was getting 170, 180 FPS on ultra. Granted, without ray tracing, but still 180 FPS in Cyberpunk is mental. I mean, even for low settings, I would say almost 200 FPS for this game is quite an impressive number. Even more so on ultra. I was like, wow, what the hell? This is like life-changing. And it really is, honestly. It is life-changing. Because you go from an unplayable setting there, because, you know, like this one, Ultra with path tracing, is just straight up unplayable, and it becomes playable thanks to this. You can experience the joy of having more than 5 FPS. It's just mental. I mean, it's path tracing at the end of the day, a fantastic technology that has come to stay in the near future. Not now. I mean, we only have Cyberpunk as far as I'm aware. In the future, we're going to have more of that, and we're going to have to rely more and more on upscaling and frame generation It's a good thing that we're not, frame generation is not a thing that's restricted to the 4,000 cards anymore. Oh my god. Yep. We're getting 30 FPS now. Imagine, without frame generation, we would be getting 15 FPS. Around that bit there. Which is quite disappointing. But I'm pretty sure I'm getting terrible numbers now because I've been messing with the settings, and that kind of makes the frame generation a little bit all over the place. It's something that's really, really noticeable because you launch it for the first time. I mean, there's nothing, the GPU clock's still the same, power draw is still the same, there's nothing off about the card itself. It's just that if you mess with the settings a lot, it's gonna impact how it runs overall. So I'm getting worse figures now than I was getting yesterday with the GPU at 65% power, which does pretty much make clear, to me at least, that the problem is not with the frame generation itself, but something just kind of, you know, once you start messing up with setting, toggling stuff on and off, it just kind of creates a sort of butterfly effect of sorts, and then you just kind of domino effect, not butterfly, never mind, I forgot what was that, but it does at the end of the day just make it run worse than it would have been running at first, which I'm gonna prove later. I'm gonna restart the game and make a new recording without touching the settings, just leave it as is and just play the game, walk around, maybe even drive around with this baseline that you guys have seen, the very same baseline, and compare. We're gonna obviously compare with this because I'm pretty sure if you mess with it a little bit too much, it just kind of goes apeshit and ruins everything. You only got 50 FPS. Still, it's pretty good. I mean, for frame gen standards, a bit underwhelming. But you've seen, like, on a previous video and also at the beginning of this video, how powerful it can be. Just don't really mess much with the settings, otherwise that's gonna happen and it's not gonna be as efficient. I mean, it's just one of its quirks. But I mean, it's something that you can easily survive. I mean, if you do eventually have to go and change your settings, just restart the game, and bingo, performance is back to what it should be, naturally. I think it triggered when I closed the game. I mean, when I turned off the frame gen and turned off the DLSS. When I tapped back into the game, it was kind of, when I left the menu, I mean, it was very sluggish, and it still feels sluggish now. Even though the frames are good, it feels kind of sluggish. The frame time, I don't know, the experience has not been the same anymore. So what I learned from this video and what I've observed previously, but I thought was fixed, but apparently it's not. Do not tweak the settings after you enable the frame gen. Pick your settings, sit with it, don't change it, and you should be golden for the rest of the day. But with that being said, with that out of the way, I suppose it's time to say goodbye because, well, we've driven around the city, we've looked at the figures. Pretty decent, all things considered. Could be better, could be definitely better. I'm gonna prove that on the next video. I'm gonna leave the settings as is and just play, not mess with it, and you're gonna see how much better it's gonna run overall. How the drops are not gonna happen in such a noticeable manner. But yeah, that's it for now. Let me save the game, end it, and then, well, see you guys soon.